Have you ever felt like you're walking through a desert, holding on to a promise that feels a million miles away? Imagine a man, not just any man, but one who would become the father of nations. His name was Abraham. Picture him. His caravan, a tiny speck against the vast, golden plains of Canaan. The sun beats down, relentless. He's a stranger in a strange land, carrying a promise from God himself, a promise of descendants as numerous as the stars. He walks, not just across sand and rock, but through the very wilderness of faith itself. The days bleed into years, the years into decades. The vibrant promise that once echoed in his heart begins to fade. Picture Abraham now, an old man by a dying campfire. The flames dance, casting long shadows that flicker like his own doubts. He looks up at the star-studded canopy, the very stars he was told his children would outnumber. But where are they? Heaven remains silent. The wind whispers through the dry brush, a lonely, melancholic sound that mirrors the emptiness he feels. The divine voice that set him on this path is now a distant memory. The silence is deafening. Was it all a dream, a trick of the heat in the heart? And what of Sarah, his wife? Her life has been a long, quiet wait. Each sunrise brings the same stark reality. We see her gaze lost in the distance, her hands resting on arms that have never held her own child. A deep, unspoken sorrow etched on her face. A question hangs in the air, heavier than the desert heat. How can promises bloom when the womb is silent? How can a nation spring from barren ground? Her hope, once a vibrant flower, has withered under the long, silent years. The promise feels like a cruel joke, a beautiful lie whispered on the wind. This is the crucible of faith. It's not just about the grand pronouncements and the parted seas. It's about the waiting. The silence, the space between the promise and its fulfillment where doubt takes root and grows. Abraham and Sarah are not just figures in an ancient text. They are a reflection of our own struggles. We've all been there, haven't we? Staring at our own barrenness, whether it's a dream that won't take flight, a prayer that seems to go unanswered, or a longing that aches in the quiet moments. So, Abraham makes a decision, a human decision, born of love, impatience, and a desperate desire to help God along. Sarah, in her despair, offers her handmaiden, Hagar, to Abraham. Perhaps, she says, I can build a family through her. It's a plan rooted in the customs of the time, a practical solution to a spiritual problem. And from this union, Ishmael is born. There is joy, a child's cry finally breaking the silence. For a moment, it seems the problem is solved. Abraham has a son, an heir. The promise, it seems, has taken a detour, but it's back on track. But this human solution brings a new kind of brokenness. The tent that was once filled with the silence of waiting is now filled with the noise of jealousy and strife. Sarah, who orchestrated this, now looks at Hagar and her son with resentment. The joy is tainted. The family Abraham longed for is fractured. This child, born of doubt and human effort, is not the child of the promise. It says a painful lesson. Sometimes our attempts to fix God as silence only create more complex problems. It's a testament to the fact that God's plan cannot be rushed or replaced by our own. 13 more years pass. 13 years of a strained household, of a promise that feels even more complicated and distant. Abraham is now 99 years old. The dream is surely dead. He has a son, yes, but the divine promise feels unfulfilled, tangled in the messy reality of his life. And then, when all hope seems lost, when Abraham has resigned himself to his own solution, God speaks again. The silence is broken, not with a whisper, but with a thunderous reaffirmation. I am God Almighty, the voice declares. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. I will establish my covenant. God doesn't just repeat the old promise, he expands it. He renames Abram to Abraham, father of a multitude, and Sarai to Sarah, princess. He's not just giving them a future, he's giving them new identities, identities rooted in his promise, not their circumstances. And then comes the most astonishing part. God says Sarah, at 90 years old, will bear a son. Abraham's reaction isn't a stoic nod of faith. He falls on his face and laughs. Not a laugh of joy, but of incredulity. Will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? It's a raw, honest, human reaction. He even tries to bargain. If only Ishmael might live under your blessing. He's clinging to his own solution, the tangible reality in front of him. It's easier to believe in the son he can see than the son who seems impossible. God is patient with Abraham's laughter. He doesn't rebuke him, he simply insists. No, Your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. The name Isaac literally means he laughs. God is turning Abraham's laugh of doubt into a laugh of future joy. He's weaving Abraham's very weakness and disbelief into the fabric of the promise itself. God is saying, your doubt doesn't disqualify you. Your laughter doesn't cancel my promise. In fact, this impossible thing that makes you laugh will be the very source of your greatest joy. And so it happens. Just as God said, at the appointed time, Sarah conceives and gives birth to a son. Isaac is born. The impossible becomes possible. The barren womb brings forth life. The long, agonizing silence is finally filled with the cry of the promised child. The laughter of doubt is replaced by the laughter of pure, unadulterated joy. Sarah declares, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. The journey through the desert is over. The waiting has ended. The promise is fulfilled, not through human striving, but through divine power. The story of Abraham isn't just about receiving a miracle. It's about what happens in the waiting. It's about the silence, the doubt, the failed attempts to do it ourselves. It's about a God who is big enough to handle our laughter, our questions, and our weaknesses. It teaches us that faith is not the absence of doubt, but the choice to trust even when we have every reason not to. It's a reminder that God's timeline is not our own, and His plans are often fulfilled in ways we could never imagine, often at the very moment we are ready to give up. So if you find yourself in a season of waiting, staring at a silent heaven, remember Abraham. Remember the laughter, and know that sometimes the greatest miracles are born from the most impossible circumstances. Thanks so much for watching with us today. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to our channel for more content that explores the depths of faith in the human journey. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, have you ever wondered what it's like to have a conversation with God? Not just a prayer whispered into the silence, but a real face-to-face encounter that changes everything. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most pivotal moments in human history, a story that has echoed through millennia, shaping faith, nations, and the very destiny of mankind. This is the story of Abraham and the divine covenant. Imagine this, a vast, star-strewn desert sky over the ancient land of Canaan. Abraham, a man already old, childless, living in a tent. He's been following a voice, a promise he can't yet see. He has left his home, his family, everything he knew, based on a single, audacious belief that the creator of the universe had a plan for him. But years have passed. The promise of a son, of a great nation, seems more distant than ever. Doubt, like the desert wind, starts to creep in. How could he, a man with one foot in the grave, be the father of nations? It's a question we all ask in our own lives, isn't it? When our dreams feel impossible, when the weight becomes unbearable, we ask, how? And then, it happens. A night unlike any other. The air grows still. A profound silence descends, a silence so deep you can feel it in your bones. Suddenly, a light pierces the darkness of Abraham's tent. It's not the gentle flicker of a lamp or the soft glow of the moon. It's a blinding, overwhelming brilliance, a light so pure and powerful it seems to hum with the energy of creation itself. Abraham, startled, shields his eyes. As his vision adjusts, a figure begins to take shape within the radiance. It's not an angel, not a messenger, but the very presence of the eternal. Stepping out of eternity and into the dust and grime of human existence, can you fathom the awe, the terror, the sheer mind-bending reality of standing before the source of all life? This wasn't a dream or a vision in the quiet of his mind. This was real. God was in his tent. In that moment, Abraham's question, how, is met with the ultimate answer, I am. The Creator hasn't forgotten. He has come to reaffirm his promise. Not with words alone, but with a ceremony as ancient and solemn as the earth itself. The Lord instructs Abraham to prepare a sacrifice, a physical, tangible act to seal an unbreakable spiritual pact. Abraham, trembling but resolute, obeys. He brings a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a turtle dove and a young pigeon. Following divine instruction, he cuts the larger animals in half, laying each piece opposite the other, creating a path between them. The birds, however, he leaves whole. This was a custom of the ancient world, a blood covenant. When two parties made such a pact, they would walk this path of blood together, signifying that if either one broke the agreement, they would suffer the same fate as the sacrificed animals. It was the most serious, binding oath a person could make, As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the desert floor, Abraham stood guard, shooing away birds of prey that swooped down, drawn by the scent of blood. He was protecting the sanctity of this sacred space, waiting for God's next move. As dusk turned to night, a deep supernatural sleep fell upon Abraham. It wasn't ordinary rest. It was a trance, a state between wakefulness and the void. And with it came a dreadful and great darkness. It was in this state of total vulnerability that God began to speak again, not just about the promise, but also about the pain to come. He showed Abraham a vision of the future, a sweeping panorama of history yet to be written. Know for certain, the voice echoed in his soul, that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs and will be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. Imagine the weight of that revelation. The joy of the promise of countless descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky was now intertwined with the sorrow of their future bondage. They would know slavery before they knew freedom. They would suffer in a foreign land, Egypt, long before they would inherit the promised land of Canaan. This wasn't a simple, happily ever after story. God was being brutally honest. The path to fulfilling the promise would be paved with hardship and trial. But the prophecy didn't end with suffering. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, God continued, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Freedom was guaranteed. Redemption was part of the plan. The darkness would not have the final say. Then, as Abraham lay in this prophetic trance, something incredible happened. A smoking firepot and a blazing torch appeared out of nowhere, and they passed between the pieces of the sacrificed animals. The firepot, representing the divine presence, the consuming holiness of God. The blazing torch, a symbol of his guiding light and judgment. They moved down that bloody path alone. Abraham didn't walk it. Only God did. Do you see the staggering implication here? In a covenant that normally required both parties to pledge their lives, God was taking the entire burden, the entire oath, upon himself. He was essentially saying, if this covenant is ever broken, let the curse fall on me alone. My promise to you is so absolute, so unconditional, that I am underwriting it with my own divine nature. This is the heart of the Abrahamic covenant. It's not a contract between equals. It's a promise from an infinite God to a finite man. It's a declaration that God's faithfulness does not depend on our faithfulness. His plan will succeed, not because of our strength, but because of his unwavering commitment. That night, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, "To your offspring I give this land. From the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates." The boundaries were set. The future was sealed. The promise was written not just in words, but in blood and fire. This moment in Abraham's tent is more than just an ancient story. It's a blueprint for faith. It teaches us that God meets us in our doubt. It shows us that his promises often come with a prophecy of struggle. The path to our promised land might be through a desert of waiting or a bondage of hardship. But the story of Abraham assures us of one profound truth. God walks the path of the covenant for us. His commitment is absolute. When we feel we can't hold up our end of the bargain, we can remember the smoking firepot and the blazing torch. We can remember that his promise is guaranteed not by our ability to hold on, but by his refusal to let go. So, whatever you're facing today, whatever promise seems too far off, remember Abraham. Remember the God who steps into the dust, who makes unconditional promises, and who takes the full weight of the covenant upon himself. His faithfulness is your anchor in the storm. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of faith's most foundational stories. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. Let me know in the comments what part of Abraham's story inspires you the most. Until next time, keep seeking the light. Have you ever wondered what the deepest form of a promise looks like? Imagine a scene, not from a movie, but from the dawn of history. A man named Abram, later known as Abraham, stands before the Creator. He's been promised descendants as numerous as the stars, a great nation born from him. But doubt creeps in. How can he know this is real? So, God makes a covenant, a binding agreement, in a way that's both ancient and profound. Abram prepares a sacrifice, dividing the animals as was the custom for a serious pact. In those days, the two parties making a covenant would walk together between the pieces, essentially saying, if I break this promise, may what happened to these animals happen to me. It was the ultimate I swear on my life moment. But here's the astonishing part. As a deep, supernatural sleep falls over Abram, he doesn't walk. Instead, he sees a vision, a smoking firepot and a blazing torch, symbols of God's own presence passing between the pieces. Alone. Think about that. God was taking the entire weight of the promise upon himself. He was binding himself to Abram, saying, "If this covenant is broken, the consequence falls on me." This wasn't a contract between equals, this was divine grace in action. God was guaranteeing his promise with his own being. It's as a powerful image of a God who doesn't just make promises but becomes the guarantee of them. This wasn't just about land or descendants. This was the blueprint for a relationship, a shadow of an even greater covenant to come. It shows us a God who willingly binds himself to his people, a God whose promises are sealed not by human effort but by his own unwavering faithfulness. Years crawl by. 10 long years since the promise was first given. The night sky is still full of stars, but Sarah's arms are still empty. Can you imagine her state of mind? Day after day, she watches Abram, her husband, hold on to this divine promise, this vision of a son. But with each passing month, the hope in her own heart withers just a little more. Doubt is a subtle thief. It doesn't always announce its arrival. It starts as a whisper, a question in the quiet moments. Did God really say that? Maybe we misunderstood. Maybe God needs our help. Sarah's faith, once a source of strength, begins to tremble under the immense pressure of time and biology. Her body was telling her one story, while God's promise told another, and the waiting. The waiting was unbearable. In a moment of profound despair, Sarah devises a plan. It was a culturally acceptable plan for the time, but it was a human plan, born of desperation, not faith. She looks at her Egyptian servant, Hagar, and makes a heartbreaking decision. She offers Hagar to her husband Abram so that he might have a child through her. Perhaps, she says, I can build a family through her. It's a moment layered with pain, Sarah's pain of inadequacy, Hagar's pain of being used as a tool, and Abram's pain of being caught between his wife's despair and God's elusive promise. This is such a human moment, isn't it? When God's timing doesn't align with our own, our first instinct is often to take matters into our own hands. We try to help God along, to engineer the outcome we believe is right. Sarah's plan seemed logical, practical even, but it was an attempt to replace divine timing with human strategy. It was a shortcut that would lead not to fulfillment, but to a whole new world of conflict and sorrow. It teaches us a difficult lesson. Sometimes, the hardest part of faith is simply to wait, to trust that God's clock is perfect, even when our own has been ticking for what feels like an eternity. And so, the human plan unfolds. Hagar conceives, and soon, a child is born. Abram, now 86 years old, holds his firstborn son. He names him Ishmael, which means God hears, a testament, perhaps, to his own relief and gratitude. A son, finally, a tangible sign, a piece of the promise he could see and touch. You can imagine the scene, the proud father, the cries of a newborn filling the camp. There must have been a sense of victory, of a problem finally solved. But beneath the surface of this family moment, a complicated reality was taking root. Abram loved Ishmael. He was his son, his flesh and blood, yet there was a shadow. This was the result of Sarah's plan, not God's. This was the fruit of impatience, not faith. Ishmael was born, and he was loved, but he was not the child of the promise. The promise was for a child born from Sarah, a child of miraculous intervention, not human arrangement. This introduces a theme that echoes throughout history, the conflict between the child of the flesh and the child of the spirit. Ishmael represents what we can produce through our own strength, our own clever plans, and our own efforts. He is the result of trying to achieve God's promises through human means. But God's plan was something far more radical. He intended to bring forth life from a situation that was, by all natural accounts, dead. He wanted to demonstrate his power, not just supplement human ability. The birth of Ishmael didn't solve the problem. It complicated it. It brought jealousy, strife, and heartache into Abram's home, creating a rivalry that would have consequences for generations to come. It's a somber reminder that when we run ahead of God, the paths we create for ourselves, however well-intentioned, often lead to tangled and difficult places. Abram now had a son, but the promise from God, the one that depended on a miracle, was still waiting to be fulfilled. After years of wandering, years of waiting, the silence was finally broken. Out in the vast, unforgiving desert, under a canopy of 1,000,000 stars, Abraham knelt. It wasn't the first time he had spoken with God, but this time felt different. A profound weight, a sense of destiny, settled over the landscape. A divine light, brighter than the desert sun, enveloped him, and a voice, not of this world, echoed across the sands. It was a voice that seemed to create the very air he breathed, a voice that carried the promise of eternity. "Walk before me and be blameless," the voice declared, its power and gentleness a paradox that shook Abraham to his core. This wasn't just a command. It was an invitation to a deeper relationship, a more profound trust. It was a call to live a life of integrity, not just in action, but in heart, fully transparent before his Creator. And then came the promise that would change the course of human history. A promise whispered on the desert wind, yet strong enough to shape nations. "And I will make my covenant everlasting." This wasn't a temporary deal or a fleeting agreement. This was an everlasting covenant, a bond that time itself could not break. It was a promise that would stretch far beyond Abraham's own life, reaching down through generations yet unborn. As Abraham absorbed the magnitude of these words, the light around him intensified. He rose to his feet, no longer just a man, but a symbol of faith. The light wasn't just on him, it was in him, transforming him. In that moment of divine communion, his very identity was ancient, glowing letters materialized in the air before him, spelling out his old name, Abram. Then, with a celestial shimmer, the letters rearranged themselves. Abram became Abraham. This was more than a change of name, it was a change of destiny. Abram meant exalted father, but Abraham meant father of a multitude. He was being elevated from a wanderer, a man with a personal promise, to the patriarch of countless nations. His journey was no longer his own. It was the foundation of a legacy that would span millennia. A glorious choir seemed to rise from the earth itself, a celestial celebration of this pivotal moment. But the divine blessing didn't end with him. The light, like a gentle sunrise, then turned its focus to his beloved wife, Sarah. For so long, her heart had carried the silent ache of childlessness. She had watched years turn into decades, hope dwindling with each passing season. But in this moment, a golden sunlight seemed to find her, illuminating her face, and her eyes, once filled with a quiet sadness, now shimmered with a renewed, impossible hope. The divine voice spoke again, this time with a promise so specific, so personal, it defied all logic and reason. "And Sarah shall bear a son." The words hung in the air, a beautiful, radical declaration, a son for Sarah, in her old age. It was a promise that the impossible would breathe. The very laws of nature were being suspended for the sake of this covenant. A gentle, hopeful melody of harps and strings began to play, weaving a tapestry of sound that mirrored the miracle to come. This son would not just be a child. He would be the living embodiment of God's faithfulness, the first note in a song of redemption that would echo for all time. Have you ever made a promise so big it felt like it could change everything? Imagine you're 99 years old, and you're told you'll become the father of nations. That's the story of Abram, a man whose life was about to be turned upside down by a divine encounter. One day, God Almighty appears to him, not in a whisper, but in a vision that must have shaken him to his core. God tells him, "I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you, and will greatly increase your numbers." Think about that for a second. Abram, nearly a century old, and his wife Sarai, who was 90, were childless. They had longed for a family, for an heir, but that dream had faded with time. And now, this incredible, almost unbelievable promise. Abram's reaction. He falls face down, not just out of respect, but likely out of sheer awe and maybe even a little bit of disbelief. Can you blame him? But God continues. He changes Abram's name to Abraham, meaning father of a multitude. He says, "You will be the father of many nations. Kings will come from you." This wasn't just about one son. It was about a legacy that would stretch across history. And then, God changes Sarai's name to Sarah, princess, promising that she, too, would bear a son, and he would be named Isaac. Now, here's where it gets really human. Abraham, still on the ground, laughs. He laughs to himself, thinking, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? It wasn't a laugh of mockery, but a laugh of incredulity. It's the kind of laugh we have when something is so far beyond our expectations that it seems absurd. He even suggests, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. He's trying to be practical, to ground this divine promise in his current reality. Ishmael, his son, through Sarah's maidservant, Hagar, was real. He was there. This promised son, Isaac, was just a promise. But God is firm. No, he says, your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. God doesn't get angry at Abraham's doubt. He understands it. He simply reassures him, and he doesn't forget Ishmael either. God promises to bless him and make him fruitful as well. But the special covenant, the one that would change the world, was reserved for Isaac. Then comes a physical sign to seal this spiritual promise. A mark of the covenant. God instructs Abraham to circumcise every male in his household, from himself to his sons to his servants. Everyone. It was to be a permanent sign in their flesh, a reminder of this everlasting agreement between them and God. It was a symbol of belonging, of being set apart for a divine purpose. This must have been a strange and difficult command. It was a painful, personal act of obedience. Yet, what does Abraham do? On that very day, he obeys. He doesn't question it. He doesn't delay. He gathers his entire household, and they all accept this sign. His son Ishmael, who was 13 at the time, and Abraham himself, at 19, undergo this rite together. This act of faith was a powerful statement. It showed that Abraham was all in. He was choosing to trust God's word, even when it seemed impossible, even when it required sacrifice. Imagine the scene. The entire camp, a community of people, united in this one act of obedience, marking themselves as part of this incredible promise. The sun sets, and the desert sky fills with stars, more brilliant than ever before. It's as if the heavens themselves are celebrating this moment of commitment. The Bible tells us that Abraham believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. His faith wasn't perfect. He had laughed, he had doubted, but in the end, he chose to trust. He acted on that trust, and that was enough. Righteousness, in this context, wasn't about being flawless. It was about a relationship, about trusting God's character and his promises, even when they didn't make sense. It was about taking God at his word. This story is so powerful because it mirrors our own journeys of faith. We all receive promises, whether big or small. We all face moments of doubt where what we're hoping for seems impossible. We laugh, we question, we try to find practical, easier solutions. But faith calls us to a higher path. It calls us to obey, even when we don't fully understand, and to trust that the one who made the promise is faithful to complete it. The promise had been spoken. The covenant was sealed in flesh and in faith. But for Abraham and Sarah, the journey was far from over. As the sun rose on a new day, Abraham would have looked to the horizon, still waiting. The promise was real. The covenant was secure. But the test of faith, the long patient waiting for its fulfillment, had only just begun. Their story teaches us that faith is not a one-time event, but a lifelong walk of trust, obedience, and patient endurance. What promises are you waiting on? How do you handle the moments of doubt and the long periods of waiting? The story of Abraham reminds us that our faith doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It just has to be present. It's about choosing, day after day, to trust the one who holds the stars in his hands and our future in his heart. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the depths of faith and the human journey. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep the faith.
Subscribe now to watch more videos about mystery.